French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigns on Monday, just weeks after his appointment.
3 months after surviving her first motion of censure, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is facing 2 new no-confidence votes.
France finds itself in a renewed period of political crisis after French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu handed in his resignation this Monday morning, making him the shortest-serving Prime Minister since 1958, less than 1 month. He was appointed beginning of September to try to steer next year's budget plan through a deeply fragmented parliament and tackle a ballooning deficit that stands at 5.8% of GDP in 2024, well above the EU limit of 3%. His cabinet that was announced on Sunday night faced fierce criticism for its lack of renewal. 12 out of the 18 ministers had already served in the previous government. So what's next? Well, looking ahead for French President Emmanuel Macron, it looks like the president faces difficult choices. He can either appoint a new prime minister, ideally from outside his camp this time, or he could call for new snap parliamentary elections. But this option doesn't guarantee a less fractured parliament, and new elections could also give some advantage and more seats in parliament to the far right or the left, which is something that Macron does not want. And the last option is that Macron could also step down, but this remains a highly unlikely decision. Sofia Katzenkova reporting from Paris for Euronews.
3 months after surviving her first motion of censure, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is facing 2 new no-confidence votes this week. The far right and far left filed the separate motions, which came via the Patriots for Europe and the Left Party respectively. A debate in the European Parliament on Monday will be followed by 2 separate votes on Thursday. The 2 bids follow a common thread: the backlash against the EU-US trade deal and the highly disfavorable terms it has imposed on European exporters, which remains under intense criticism from all sides of the political spectrum. Both the Left and Patriots for Europe have also criticized von der Leyen's lack of transparency. While she is expected to survive the vote thanks to support from centrist parties, the back-to-back votes highlight the political polarization that von der Leyen faces in her second mandate. Ukraine's military said on Monday that its long-range drones hit several Russian military facilities behind the front line. These include an ammunition plant in the Nizhny Novgorod region, an oil terminal in Crimea, and an ammunition depot, according to the General Staff. Russian authorities acknowledged a major Ukrainian drone attack, but gave few details beyond claiming that air defenses shot down 251 Ukrainian drones. That would make it one of the biggest Ukrainian barrages on Russian territory since the war began, cranking up the pressure on Moscow's military logistics. Though Russia's economy and army are much bigger than Ukraine's, cutting-edge drone technology makes up in part for its shortage of soldiers. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Monday that Kyiv hopes to continue to expand its domestic defense manufacturing capacity. This year's Oktoberfest, the world's largest folk festival, closed in the southern German city of Munich on Sunday. But in addition to the music, attractions, and beer, this year's event was notable for another reason. It was one of the rare instances of Oktoberfest running at a financial loss. The festival saw an economic hit after a bomb scare prompted the grounds to be closed for hours on October 1st. The closure, followed by searches by emergency services for booby traps and an increased security presence, had a knock-on effect on the festival's financial impact. As a result of the closure caused by the bomb scare, Oktoberfest this year is on course to lose €21.2 million. It's thought that the closure over the lucrative lunchtime period will lead the pack when it comes to losses, but the total financial impact won't be clear until all the receipts are in and counted now the festival has closed.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says Germany should boycott next year's Eurovision Song Contest if Israel is excluded. In an interview with public broadcaster ARD, Merz called it a scandal that Israel's participation is even being questioned.
Das würde ich befürworten. Ich halte es für einen Skandal, dass darüber überhaupt diskutiert wird. Israel gehört dazu.
Germany is part of Eurovision's so-called Big Five alongside France, Italy, Spain and the UK, the contest's biggest financial contributors. Spain has said it will withdraw from next year's competition if Israel is not banned. Broadcasters in the Netherlands, Ireland, Iceland and Slovenia have also threatened to pull out. Faced with increasing pressure, the European Broadcasting Union said it would hold an online vote in November on whether Israel should take part. Last year, Israel's involvement sparked numerous pro-Palestinian protests. On October 7, 2023, Israel suffered the deadliest terrorist attack in its history, but what came after in the months that followed? On October 7th, Hamas launched a series of attacks on Israel from Gaza. Terrorists killed more than 1,140 people and took 251 hostages. Military bases, kibbutzim and the Nora Festival are targeted. In response, Israel promises to annihilate Hamas and launches an offensive on Gaza. 6 days later, the Israeli army orders the first evacuation of the northern part of the enclave. After 7 weeks of war, a first 7-day truce comes into effect. 81 hostages were freed and exchanged for 240 Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. On January 26, the International Court of Justice delivers an historic verdict ordering Israel to prevent any act of genocide. South Africa had brought the case before the UN's highest court, accusing Israel of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. On September 17th and 18th, hundreds of beepers and walkie-talkies used by Hezbollah explode simultaneously in Lebanon. The attack by Israel kills at least 37 people and injures almost 3,000. On September 27, Israel kills Hassan Nasrallah, Secretary General of Hezbollah. The war between Israel and Hezbollah, which began the day after October 7th and ended with a ceasefire on November 27, 2024, leaves almost 4,000 people dead and over 16,000 wounded in Lebanon. After more than 15 months of war, a ceasefire agreement negotiated by Qatar, Egypt and the United States comes into effect. 33 hostages are exchanged for 1,800 Palestinian detainees. 2 months later, the agreement is broken by Israel. In June, a 12-day blitzkrieg breaks out between Israel and Iran. Israel strikes the Islamic Republic's nuclear sites and later the center of Tehran. Iran retaliates. Following American strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, Iran targets an American base in Qatar. Donald Trump announces a ceasefire the following day. On August 22nd, the UN officially declares a state of famine in Gaza, a situation never before seen in the Middle East. More than 500,000 Gazans are affected. The UN blames systemic Israeli obstruction. On September 29th, US President Donald Trump presents a peace agreement to end 2 years of war in the Gaza Strip. It includes the release of hostages, the disarmament of Hamas, and an end to the Israeli offensive in Gaza. Israel's offensive has left over 67,000 people dead and 170,000 wounded in 2 years. Hamas is still holding 48 hostages, 20 of whom are still alive, according to Israel.
Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg and former Barcelona mayor Ada Colau are amongst the 171 flotilla activists supported by Israel on Monday. Large crowds gathered at the airport in Madrid and Lisbon to welcome dozens of activists back home. Those who had been detained testified about the conditions they endured in prison and the treatment they received from Israeli officials, with many describing it as dehumanizing.
Let me be very clear. There is a genocide going on in front of our very eyes. A live-streamed genocide on all of our phones. No one has the privilege to say we are not aware of what is happening. No one in the future will be able to say we did not know.
La sensación que nos queda después de todo lo que ha vivido, porque ha sido un proceso constante de deshumanización, de intentar culpabilizarnos de lo que había, actos de hostilidad durante todo el tiempo, privación de sueño.
The activists were detained by Israel after its navy illegally intercepted dozens of humanitarian aid ships traveling to Gaza. The flotilla's goal had been to break Israel's long-standing blockade of the Strip and to bring crucial aid into the war-ravaged enclave. Israel, which has dismissed the flotilla as a publicity stunt, repeatedly denied accusations of mistreatment and says it's respected the activists' rights.
US-based scientists Mary E. Branco and Fred Ramsdell and their Japanese peer Shimon Sakaguchi have won the 2025 Nobel Prize in Medicine. The three were awarded for their groundbreaking discoveries in peripheral immune tolerance, which is one way the body helps keep the immune system from attacking its own tissues instead of foreign invaders, a symptom of autoimmune diseases. The award is the first of this year's Nobel Prize announcements and was announced by a panel at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. Nobel Prize announcements will continue throughout the week, with the Peace Prize announced on Friday.
Rescue teams in Slovenia found on Sunday the body of one of 3 Croatian mountaineers who had been swept away in an avalanche. The group had been climbing the Tosk mountain in northwestern Slovenia when the avalanche struck. 4 members had stopped to rest, while the other 3 continued and were caught in the debris. Police say the search for the remaining 2 climbers has been suspended until Monday because of worsening weather and further risk. Slovenia has been hit by sudden cold weather, bringing early snow, strong winds, and freezing temperatures.